Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Raegan Way podcast. I am so excited for today's episode because not only have we transformed the microphones and everything, but we now are going to video. So I'm excited because I'm stepping up the podcast, making it a little more real, not so pia. But I am just super excited to adventure into this new avenue of YouTube. And I think when you have the video, you can almost feel that sense of relatability, connectiveness with the host. And that's always been my intent. It is funny, I actually filmed this podcast, this episode a few days ago, but I was thinking back and I was watching it, and it's still just I think I almost freaked myself out a bit with the camera because before, when I would film the Raegan Way or record it, I'm not gonna lie, I was usually in my pajamas, lounging around, but that's why I was able to come across and just open my mind and open my heart because I wasn't so worried about what I looked like. Was my posture great? And then I watched Hot Mess by Alex Earl, and she was so relaxed. Even though it was a video, she was still having heart to heart. She was still opening up, and it kind of inspired me to re-record because, as you know, I've always wanted to be as authentic as I can. I always want to be very relatable, just true Raegan Rutty. So I'm going to pretend like the camera isn't here, like I'm just having a grand old time, which I am, but just kicking back, relaxing, and talking all things the Raegan way. As you all know, we have not done a podcast episode in a few weeks. A lot has happened. So before we dive in with guests, before we jump ahead, I wanted to take a step back, have some heart to heart conversations, and talk about the questions and topics that you all have been asking me. So sit back, relax, and welcome to the Raegan Way. If I'm being completely transparent as well, another reason why I wanted to re-record this was because I noticed every time I went to a question, I said, "This question. I love this question. This question." Girl, we get it. It's a question. So today I'm only giving myself to do that once. She gets to say this question once, and that's it. I even have the computer. We are stepping it up, okay? But let's dive deep. The first question is about my Olympic journey. Again, thank you all so much for those who sent the questions and topics. I obviously want to talk about things that you want to hear about, but be on the lookout for some guests. I have a lot of fun episodes planned, maybe with the momager, maybe with my good old sister, best friends. So those will be very entertaining. But before we get into the entertaining stuff, let's still have the heartfelt conversations. This person asked, what was the most difficult part of becoming an Olympian? It is so hard to pinpoint one thing because my Olympic journey was very difficult. I left Cayman when I was only 14. I began training in Houston, Texas, living with different host families, training 38 hours a week, a lot of injuries, a lot of hard practices. And I often felt like I had to grow up really fast in those situations because I was alone. Gymnastics is a difficult sport, but on top of the abusive training that doesn't help the circumstances, and just being a teenage girl is difficult. So you mix all that together, you're getting a recipe for something. It's just what you want the recipe to be. But I think one of the hardest parts of training for the Olympics was doubt. I uh, I doubted myself a lot throughout my gymnastics career, and I think that's one of my biggest regrets is that I didn't have a lot of confidence. I am extremely humble. I'm extremely realistic when it comes to my abilities. I'm a dreamer, but when it comes to what I'm able to do, I'm very real with myself. And I almost think sometimes in gymnastics, I kind of kick myself in the butt for that because I I knew I wasn't the best, and I never claimed to be the best. But I was the best for my country, and I think I often got so much in my head of, "You're not as good as the other girls. You're not as good as the other countries. Like, you kinda don't deserve to be here." And that made me doubt my ability, doubt my skills, doubt the scores, but it made me doubt who I was, and I kinda wish that I believed in myself more because I sometimes wonder if I had more self-confidence, if I did believe in myself, if I would have been a better gymnast. And I recognized that struggle or like after my gymnastics career. So when it came to pursuing Miss Universe and pageantry, I didn't want to doubt myself because it's so true. Whether you think you can or can't, you're correct. And unfortunately, a lot of times in my gymnastics career, I thought I can't, or I thought I shouldn't, or I couldn't, or I wouldn't. I just listened to the critics and the haters too much, and I hate that I did that. But it allows me to grow, and I understand that now. So I'm not going to beat the baby too much. So when it came to pageantry, I knew that I was naive. I knew that I was new to this world, but I didn't want to doubt myself because I saw that didn't serve me well in my gymnastics career. Instead, I looked at it as an avenue of how much I can learn and grow. It was all new. It was all very exciting. And instead of letting myself kind of close in and doubt and wonder, what if, am I good enough for this? I said, I bring something new. I bring something fresh because I'm not burnt out. I'm not going to be like a know-it-all. I'm not going to act like I know everything because that allows me to kind of be molded into what a Miss Cayman should be. So for me, while I suffered a lot with self-doubt and just doubt in general in gymnastics in my Olympic career, I used it as fuel to change when I pursued Miss Universe. I almost said this next question, but someone was asking about, the mindset of an Olympian. I love talking about this, and it's kind of funny because I just talked about doubt and everything, but when you are training for the Olympics, that is a whole other level of work ethic. And I always look back at everything I went through. And something that's kind of crazy is I actually don't remember being 15 or 16 because of how hard my life was at that point and how hard it was to get to the Olympics. There's a lot of things that people don't know about. There's almost a lot of things that I kind of forgot about. And, something will happen in my day to day life now. And I'm like, oh my gosh, wait, that's crazy because when I was a gymnast, and I will completely forgot that something had happened. So, in saying all of this, the mindset of an Olympian for me is recognizing that if, 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old Raegan can handle it, 22-year-old Raegan can. The Olympics, I think, in training for the Olympics in my gymnastics career was probably the hardest thing that I will ever go through. So if I can almost recognize that, I can say, if I handled that at such a young age, I can do anything now. And even at Miss Universe, it was very challenging. The late nights, the early mornings, the pressures, the comparison, the long rehearsals, the other circumstances that were happening. But I kept reminding myself, if 16-year-old Raegan can go through what she went through, 22-year-old Raegan can champion this. So for me, the Olympics were very hard. My gymnastics career was very testing, but it has allowed me to develop such a different sense and perspective of mindset and determination. It's still going back to whether you think you can or you can't, you're correct. So I think the training for the Olympics has definitely molded my sense of resiliency. Absolutely. I don't give up. And sometimes I'm very stubborn with it, like, oh, I will show you hard work. But I think that's okay because if I'm being honest, I think that's something that a lot of us lack in this generation is we like that quick validation of touch, here I got it. Like the fast reward, but for me I like the drawn out work because it just makes the reward so much sweeter. Going into my mental health and advocacy, someone wanted to know, how has my mental health journey influenced my advocacy? And it has influenced it entirely. I just mentioned, I don't really remember being 15 or 16 because it was very, very challenging. I spent my 17th birthday in the office of my therapist because towards the last few months of being 16, 15 and 16 were very difficult for me. There was a lot of changes of where I was living, the gyms, on top of gymnastics, abusive coaching, being away from home, having to do courses, my high school courses through an online platform. And at that age, you're just trying to figure out who you are. So for me, when I was 16, I was very depressed. And in a weird sense, I talk about mental health so much that I kind of forget how much it did affect me this dark period. But I was very, very depressed. And sometimes I act like it wasn't too bad, and then I kind of like go through like my camera roll and I'm like, oh, or like old notes or my journals, and I'm like, whoa, like I feel bad for myself sometimes, if I'm being completely honest. And after the Olympics, because when you're training so hard, you don't have time to reflect. You don't have time to look back. You're just it's the next day, next foot forward, next foot forward. But when I retired gymnastics, I was able to take a step back, and it was a few months after my Olympic career where felt so bad for myself. And it feels so weird to say this, especially when people are going to be watching this, but you think about what young Raegan went through, or I think about what young Raegan went through, and I just felt so bad for her that I sometimes want to go back in time and give myself a hug, because when I was 16, I was so depressed, so anxious, having horrible, horrible thoughts. And I felt like it was not okay to not be okay. And the first thing my therapist told me was, she looked at me and she said, "Your life does suck." And I never realized how bad, not only did I want to hear that, but that I needed to hear that. I was always told, toughen up. Why are you crying? All those things. So for me, my mental health journey has shaped it to, I want to show children and adults that it is okay to not be okay. You are going to go through something, whether it's anxiety, depression, eating disorders, even suicidal thoughts. Life is tough, but so are you. And I want to use my story and I want to use my journey to show them that it's inevitable that you are going to go through something, but that doesn't define you. You can go through the lowest valleys, but you can be an Olympian. You can go to Miss Universe. You can be a CEO, entrepreneur, a mother, a father. Your past does not define you if you allow it to be the fuel of your journey. I look at my mental health and I thought, I was never going to recover from it. But I proved myself wrong. And I think that's the important lesson of, you can choose to be happy. You can go through such terrible things, but if you let it ruin your life, that's your own choice. You can allow it to grow. You can allow it to become a better person. And now whenever I go through something, I always take a step back instead of letting it, snowball into a whole thing. I always, and this kind of has helped me in my later years of, this lesson might not help me now, but what can this help my future daughter? I always say that. When I go through something now, I'm always like, what would I tell my future daughter? And I just think it's so important, because as I've gotten older, I realize how much I can learn from my parents. So when I go through a little rough patch, or if it's a lesson, if I made a mistake, or if I've, did something great, I always think, how can I use this to teach my future daughter? And I think that just shows that, a lot of what we go through in life is our perspective and how we react to it. And my mental health journey proved that to me, and I want to show it to everyone else. Someone asked me, how do you handle stress? Girl, when you have the answer, let a girl know, because, oh my gosh, if I'm going to be honest, I am not the best at handling stress. I really wish I could come on here and say I do these 5 things and it's all great and dandy. But I'm not gonna lie, I tend to freak out, um, especially if I'm like dealing with a lot. I remember before the Olympics, oh my gosh, I think I was having at least 2 like full blown panic attacks a day. And leading up to Miss Universe, same thing. Like, it's really bad how easy I let myself get worked up. And I hate that I do it. But, part of fixing something is recognizing that you do it. But I try my best to handle stress, but obviously I'm not the best at it. But that's okay. One thing that I have noticed helps me is to-do list, because I'm someone that gets wrapped up so much in my brain that I'm like, oh my gosh, you have all this to do. And then I don't sleep, and then I panic, and then I blow up. So if I just take a second, whether it's on my phone, or I love writing it in my little cute Lily Pulitzer journal. Lily Pulitzer, please sponsor me a journal. Just joking. I feel so much better, because, okay, for example, I'm someone with ADHD, so for some reason, like, scheduling a phone call freaks me out. So I will literally put on the to-do list, schedule the phone call, do the phone call, write the phone. Like, it seems so simple, but for me, that just it takes something that I've made such a big deal in my brain and simplifies it completely. So if I have to do all these emails, because as Miss Cayman, there's a lot of scheduling, there's a lot of correspondence. So I will do a to-do list, and half of it will be email this person for the email, like reply. And it seems so stupid that I have to write that down, but for me, that's what helps me with my stress is writing it all out, because then I realize it's just little tasks. It's just a little thing that I'm gonna have to tackle. But if I write it and I literally check it off, it makes the world of difference. And if I'm being honest, if it's a really bad day, I will sometimes write things that I've done just so that I can have the pleasure of, oh, look what you did. And it's the little victories in life. You have to celebrate it, because if you let yourself pile on the stress, pile on the to-do list, you're going to freak yourself out. So for me, even if it's, I made my bed, I'm so proud. Yay! It de-stresses, okay? That's my personal thing is to-do list, even if it's checking off things that you've already done. The next topic that we are going to discuss is stereotypes. This person was basically asking, did you feel, what is the question specifically? As an Olympian and beauty queen, how do you challenge stereotypes about what women can and cannot do? I love this question, and it's something that I really wanted to show at Miss Universe was, and I kept saying the same little slogan of women can be multifaceted like diamonds, which is true, especially like a 5 carat diamond. But anyways, we can be athletic yet feminine. We can be educated yet amiable, and we can be brave but timid. I felt so often in my life that I was placed in this box of only being an Olympian. That my only attribute in life was that I could do a cartwheel, a flip, and a turn. And it really made me struggle to find out who Raegan Rutty was. So when I realized, I might, have a little muscle. Not anymore. She ain't got no muscles anymore. But no, I'm joking. I can have, my muscle, but I can still be sexy. Or, my abs might be sticking out, but I can still pose all beautiful in a swimsuit. Or even like I can have a beautiful blown out hair, but I'm still gonna have rips on my hands. And then going with the other stuff, I think it's so important that people realize that it's important to always be teachable, and it's important to always be realistic with yourself. You can try new things, and it's okay to be scared and nervous. So for me, I wanted to be an example of that at Miss Universe, and kind of like how Alona, how do we say her last name? The Olympic rugby player. Now I think it's Mayer. I need to search her because I appreciate. Okay, Mayer. I don't know, but I do love her. I loved what she did on Dance with the Stars and Swimsuit Illustrated, because she showed exactly that, and I think it is such an important lesson for young women that you do not have to be one thing, and you can be many things, and you can excel at each and every one of them. There is not a specific look of beauty. There's not a specific look of sexiness, prettiness, but there's also not a specific look for athletes. And I think it's just so important. We have social media, that we use this to an advantage to represent a positive image rather than a very negative and potentially dangerous one. Everyone always asks me this question: most surprising part of Miss Universe. And I always try to think about it, because I felt like I was pretty well prepared, but there's like little things that I guess surprised me. Like I was really nervous about the other contestants, I'm not gonna lie. I was, because you hear all these stories of they're gonna steal your clothes, they're gonna, hide your stuff. And I was like, oh my gosh, my gown, like what? My earrings. That was far from the truth. I truly met 125 incredible women. Like the stories, the strength, the beauty inside and out, unmatched. My life truly changed because of those other girls. Just from what I could learn from them, we all offered such a unique perspective of everything. But I guess what was surprising is how alike we were. We all came from a different country. Many of us spoke completely different languages, but we were so much alike in so many ways, which is hilarious to me. Like, for example, my roommate, Miss Croatia, different language, completely different upbringing, all the way across the world. And we were best friends. And she was like the Croatian version of me, and I was like the Caymanian version of her. So I guess that was something surprising of, you know, you can be so different from someone, come from a completely different background, language, culture, religion, and be so much alike. But a little funny thing that was surprising is the ears. Oh my gosh. Our ears by the first week were like bleeding and so swollen and so uncomfortable because of all the earrings. Some of them are so heavy. Costume jewelry, I'm a bit allergic to. So that was something surprising, is how irritated my ears were. Clip-ons became your best friend. I like, there was times I would literally like wince putting them in, and like I would take them out, just anyways. That was a little thing that was surprising. This person, all they wrote, oh my gosh, I have a mosquito bite. It's really itchy. Anyways, this person just wrote affirmations. I love affirmations. I do affirmations every morning, and I think you should too. Here's why you should do affirmations. Give a TED talk. No, as a psychology student, you really learn, what you believe in and what you say becomes the truth because of, your neuroplasticity, your neural pathways. So it is so important to feed yourself positive affirmations. Every morning when I wake up, I do them, and they kind of depend on the day, what I'm going to go through, and what I need to tell myself. If I'm feeling really tired one day, I'll wake up. I either do them when I'm drinking my coffee, when I'm in the shower, or right before I do my makeup. Kind of like when I'm in a bit of a vulnerable state, if you will. So I'll breathe in. I'm like, I am strong and I am powerful. So it kind of depends on what I'm about to do that day, again, that I need to remind myself that I can do. So, for example, at Miss Universe, you are so tired. So every morning I'd sip my little espresso in my bed, and I was like, I am energized. I am wide awake. I feel great today. And it really does boost something in you. I don't know exactly. I didn't go very far with my psychology career. I don't have a PhD or anything. But it really does make you feel better about yourself. So, for example, there was one time I was really nervous for an event in Cayman. I can't remember what it was, but it was like a speaking thing that I didn't know too much about what I was speaking about, like didn't have a lot of time to prepare. The audience was very different. It was just a whole new experience. So before I'll do it when I'm driving too. But I keep my hands on the wheel. We just do the breathes and the words. Like I'll tell myself like, I know what I'm doing, or I'm like, I am educated, I am smart, I am capable, I have the ability to make an impact. For me, affirmations have changed my life. I used to, write them and put them around my mirror, but I think it's just so important to always be feeding yourself positive words, positive thoughts, so that you can believe it, show it, and achieve it. Period. Let's now dive deep into what's happening in Cayman. So many people wanted me to talk about politics and issues. I think that it is so important to be educated about what's happening, read the news, read articles, because as you all know, elections are coming up and there's a lot of hot topics, whether it's your opinion about education, the transportation system, the environment, or just politics in general. I have a lot. I have a lot I could say, but I think the main issue that is happening in Cayman is we have forgotten what it means to be Caymanian. As you know, I'm a very proud Caymanian, and I think it's so important, that we remember that we are the Cayman Islands. I always say this, and I stand by this. I'm not anti-expat in any way, but I am very pro Caymanian. And I love that we are a blend of all cultures. But I think it's important to remember, like I said, that we are the Cayman Islands. And I think it's time that we make Cayman Cayman again. As this generation grows old and as we continue to progress, it is important that we remind ourselves, we continue to share stories and educate people about our culture, about our history, and about our heritage. As Miss Universe Cayman Islands, I'm a huge ambassador, and I want to continue to show people, not only in Cayman, but around the world, what Cayman kindness looks like. What does it mean when we say we're thatch and rope? What does stew conch and stew turtle look like? I think it's so important that we continue to teach these things, because if we don't teach it, we're going to lose it. And this is what sets Cayman apart, not just from the Caribbean, but from the rest of the world, is that we might be small, but we are mighty. We are one of a kind. I always say Cayman is the place that time forgot, and I think it's important that, we continue to return back to those waves of preserving, whether it's sharing stories, sharing food, even singing songs, that we remind one another what Cayman looks like, and we make Cayman Cayman again. Amen. That's the truth, though. It is the truth. But in saying all this, ladies and gentlemen, please go out and vote. The average voting age right now is, I believe, 52, and that is way too high. We are the next generation of leaders. We are the ones who are going to come up and lead this country, who we say, or what we say goes in just a few years. So make sure you are electing people that you believe in. You stand for what they say. They're actually going to follow through on what they say, and they make Cayman Cayman again. That is what I am looking for. I am registered to vote. I've been registered to vote. I've voted before. But I want to encourage you all, if you have a voice, use it and use your right to vote. Because when the elections come around and you don't vote, you can't complain. I'm gonna be honest. If you have a power and you have a right, please use it. It is a time for a change, and let's be the change together. Going off of the issues in Cayman, a lot of people wanted to know about mental health in the Cayman Islands. I would say mental health is a growing issue not only in Cayman, but around the world. There is still a heavy stigma here. You know, we always say, man up, you're fine, you know, brush it off, it's just a scratch. But I think what a big thing that people don't recognize here is generational trauma, and that's something I really want to tackle through not only this year, but the rest of my time. Because whether you realize it or not, we all have been affected by some sort of cycle of abuse, whether it's physical, emotional, verbal, sexual. Unfortunately, we are all somehow affected by abuse. I think that we have done a fantastic job of talking about mental health and suicide in our community. We're really opening up that conversation. But I always say we need to open it up to break down the stigma. If we continue to make it seem like a controversial topic or a tiptoe eggshell, we're never going to come to a solution. I think it's amazing that the Mental Health Center has finally opened up, but that's just one step. We need to have more resources. We need to have more therapists. More people need to be trained in first aid responding when it comes to someone calling the suicide hotline. We need to ensure that people in our island feel loved, supported, and that they have a shoulder to lean on. The last question, I used it for the end, has to do with what they just said. What is the most important lesson you hope to pass on to young Caymanians? To every Caymanian, young and old, I have said this once and I will say it 1,000 times. Just because we come from a small country does not mean we can't accomplish big things. I really want to show people that you can make it here. I mean, just a prime example is I was the first ever Olympic gymnast from the Cayman Islands. I'm also the first East Ender to win Miss Cayman in over 20 years because I've realized that where I come from does not hold me back. Instead, I want you all to use it as motivation. Be the first, make history, set records. You can accomplish amazing things. What I love about Cayman is we are an island full of love and support. And I want to support you all to go after your dreams, whether it's in sports, academic, your career, you can do it. And being from Cayman is not something that sets you back, but it is something that sets you forwards. You can do it. I believe in you. Now go do it for yourself, do it for your country. You got this. Oh my gosh. I want every young Caymanian to just go after their dreams. I think there is so much talent here that goes untapped because they think, oh, you know, Cayman, we're small. We're not meant to do anything. Oh, we're Cayman, we're not meant to place. Oh, Cayman, no, we don't medal. Who said so? Look at Jordan Crooks. He is doing amazing things. And he is continuously showing that just because we come from a small country doesn't mean you can't accomplish big things. You can't have this mindset of, I'm from a small country. I only do small things. No, you can do amazing things and you will, but you have to believe it in yourself first before you can achieve it. I believe in you, but you have to believe in yourself. On that note, I want to thank you all so much for tuning into the Raegan Way. I really like the whole sit back and relax. I got a little more comfortable in front of the camera. I've always been fine with the microphone. You all know me. You give me a microphone, you're going to hear more than you want to hear. But thank you all so much again for tuning in. I hope you all love the rebranding. I'm excited for the special guest I have planned. It might be podcast in the car, podcast here, podcast there, but I just can't wait to see what is in store for the Raegan Way. Make sure to follow me on Instagram at the Raegan Way, on Spotify, and now YouTube, where I hope you all are watching this. I love you all. Have a blessed day, and don't forget to keep living the Raegan Way. Bye.